Dandavat Pranam, all goes to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev.
Krishna
Thank you
Krishna
so
Hare Hare
much.
Rama Hare Rama
Hare Krishna Pavitra Madhave Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Shri Prabhupada ki Jai, Guru Maharaj ki Jai. This is Vinita Gandharvika Devidasi from Texas. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Gandharvika Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all goes to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. Thank you so much for joining.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna.
Mataji, all good, Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj's. My humble obeisances to you and all the duties. This is Krishna Kumari Devidasi from Radha.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Kumari Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all goes to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. Thank you so much for joining, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada Ji ki Jai. This is Niharika from Bloomington.
Hare Krishna, Niharika Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all goes to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. Thank you so much for joining, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Guru Maharaj ki Jai. This is Shyama Gauri Dasi and Abhiram Sakadas from Charlotte.
Hare Krishna, Shama Gauri Mataji and Abhiram Sukha Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, always to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. Thank you so much for joining.
Hare Krishna Mataji, this is Radha Damodas and Atma Maya from Austin, Texas. Please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Guru Maharaj, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to all the simple devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Radha Damodar Prabhuji and Atma Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, always to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. Thank you so much for joining.
Hare Krishna Pavitra Madhuri Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki Jai, Vrinda.
Hare Krishna, Vanda Gopika Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, always to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. Thank you so much for joining.
Hare Krishna Pavitra Mataji. This is Radha from Baltimore. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and all glories to Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, always to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. Thank you so much for joining.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj, all glories to assembled devotees. This is Mohini Lakshmi from Detroit.
Hare Krishna, Mohini Lakshmi Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. Thank you so much for joining. Hare Krishna, is there anyone else who wants to introduce? Okay, thank you all for joining. So now I would like to hand over the call to Abhiram Sakha Prabhuji for the introduction of today's speaker. So Prabhuji, please take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. So today we are very fortunate to have His Holiness Chandramauli Maharaj as a speaker for all of us. Chandramauli Maharaj is a well-known preaching sannyasi in ISKCON. He doesn't need any introduction, but as a courtesy and for our purification, I'm going to give some brief introduction for Maharaj. Maharaj was born in New Jersey in 1947, and he came in contact with Krishna consciousness in Denver, Colorado at the age of 24 in 1973. And then he began preaching missions in New York City. Subsequently, he moved to New Vrindavan. New Vrindavan, what we see today, is not what was there at that time. All the sannyasis preaching today, they were brahmacharis during those days, and Maharaj was one of them. They went through a lot of hardship, lot of austerities to make the temple in New Vrindavan. And those hardships are beyond our comprehension. We cannot even imagine what Maharaj and other sannyasis, brahmacharis that time went through. Because of their mercy, what we see today in New Vrindavan, as well as the entire planet where Krishna consciousness movement has spread. In 1986, Chandramauli Maharaj accepted sannyas order and began preaching in Cincinnati and Columbus, Ohio. In early 80s, he began involved with ISKCON prison ministry in USA and began visiting prisoners and holding programs in the jails, along with regularly writing letters to the inmates and sending them Srila Prabhupada's books. He has been well known for his prison preaching. He is the leader of ISKCON prison ministry, and he has been working tirelessly to document all the details as well as give association to the inmates who are having all the bad association in the prison. He is also communicating to all the prison ministry around the world. He has written a book called Holy Jail. Basically, these are the all activities and experiences he has gained through prison ministry over a period of time. In 1995, he began serving as a resident sannyasi in Chicago, where he was based until 2013. Then he subsequently located in Croatia. Currently, he is focusing on Eastern Europe, including Croatia, India, Europe. He also visits London Temple very regularly. During summer of months, he visits in USA and gives association to all of us. I am one of those fortunate where Maharaj comes to Charlotte and gives his association to devotees. We are very thankful for him for his association. He is a disciple of ISKCON founder Acharya Abhaycharan Srila Prabhupada. So let's welcome Maharaj by saying 3 times Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Hari
Hari
Bol.
Bol.
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Hari
Hari
Bol.
Bol.
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol.
So I request Maharaj to please take over.
Jai Ho, thank you, Abhi Ram Saka Prabhu.
Thank you,
Hare
Maharaj.
Krishna.
Welcome.
I am honored and ready by your mercy to try to inspire your wonderful audience in something transcendental. So, as I understand, I've been given a verse from the 4th canto, Paranjana becomes a woman, in the next slide, verse 37 of chapter number 28. So what should I do? Should I read the verse and the purport, or should I just do what you
Yes,
want?
Maharaj.
I read the whole verse and purport.
Purport depends on you how much you want to read, but shloka and translation and part of the purport, Maharaj.
Okay. So Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this is a continuation of the theme here, talking about King Malaya Dwaja. Sit no snas bhakta varsani shupipapse priyapriye sukha dukkha iti dvandvani ajayat samadarshanaha. Through austerity, King Malaya Dwaja in the body and mind gradually became equal to the dualities of hot, cold and heat, happiness and distress, wind and rain, hunger and thirst, the pleasant and the unpleasant. In this way, he conquered all relativities. Srila Prabhupada's liberation means becoming free from the relativities of the. Unless one is self-realized, he has to undergo the dual struggle of the relative worlds. So in those two statements alone, there is so much meaning. We are aspiring to become free from the entanglement of the material energy. This is the actual principle of the execution of devotional service. So that liberation is the stage before Prem Pumarta Mahan, which is the goal, developing pure love for Krishna. Liberation may becomes free from all material entanglement. And that is done by devotional service. And Prabhupada said, unless one is self-realized, so what does he mean by self-realized? Knowing that I'm not the body, that is part one of self-realization. We have a material body, we live in the material body, we are given the material body at the time of our birth, and our material body is given under the influence of the material energy due to our, what we say, accumulated activities in previous lives. Karma, Daivana, Trena, as explained by Prahlad Maharaj. By karma, one takes birth, and we're given a particular body. But we, the soul, the life within the body, the pure energy, which is part and parcel of Krishna, is different from the body. So self-realization comes in two parts. For the Gyanis, self-realization means to understand Aham Brahmasmi, I am not this body. But for the devotees, that is part one, I am not this body, but who am I? That is part two, and that is the understanding that Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, that we are Jiver, actually, Lord Chaitanya explains, Jiver Surupai Krishna Nitya Das. And Krishna says, Mama Maya, all living beings are intimately connected to me in loving devotional service. So that is our real identity, separate from this false identity of the relative world, which gives us so many identities based on the initial relative identity of accepting a material body. Prabhupada goes on to say in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna advises Arjuna to conquer all relativities through tolerance. Well, here is a principle that is very much foundational for our progress in devotional service, and that is learning the principles of tolerance. As Krishna says in this verse, what is that verse? Sukha dukkha da agapayino nityas tam stetikshu bharata. Happiness and distress, the dualities of the material energy, come and they go as compared to the seasons that we experience. The winter comes, the winter goes, the summer is here now, the summer will soon be gone, and then instead of turning on the fans and opening up the windows, we'll be closing the windows and turning on the heaters. So we tolerate summer with its excess heat, we tolerate winter with excess cold. Tolerance is the principle that constantly the living entity is faced in the material world. There's so many features that we have to tolerate in this world, and one has to learn how to tolerate, and that means to become somewhat free from the relative experiences that we are forced upon in this world. In other words, we have to come to the consciousness that happiness and distress, honor, dishonor, heat and cold, pleasant and unpleasant, comes and goes just like winter and summer season. And we have to learn how to tolerate, not only tolerate, but rise above that, these difficulties by staying connected to the spiritual platform through devotional service. And then Prabhupada goes on to explain using examples that we, in the summertime, we take bath many times because it's pleasant. In the wintertime, we don't like to take a bath because of the cold. The common man has to undergo much austerity to become equipoised before dualities. One who becomes agitated by the relativities of life has accepted a relative position, and the solution is to undergo austerities as mentioned in the Shastras to transcend the austerity of having a material body and material existence. So then we have to perform austerities. Otherwise, without performing austerities, tolerance does not develop. Prabhupada goes on to explain in relationship to this particular pastime that King Malaya Dwaja underwent severe austerities by leaving home, going to Kulachala, taking his bath in sacred rivers, eating only vegetables like stems, roots, seeds, flowers, and leaves, avoiding any cooked food or grains. And Prabhupada goes on to say these are difficult austerities. In this age, it's very difficult to leave home and go to the forest or to the holy places and to adopt the process of austerity. Indeed, it's almost impossible. No one likes the idea of leaving the comforts of home and all the friends and relatives that one is surrounded by and living alone in holy places, performing austerities. And it's very difficult. Prabhupada said, he said, even if one is even advised to give up meat eating, drinking, gambling, and illicit sex, one will fail to do so. These are the austerities that are given to us. And Prabhupada says, that's even difficult. What then would a person do if he went to the Himalayas or Kulachala? Such acts of renunciation are not possible in this age. Therefore, Krishna advises us to accept the process of bhakti. Bhakti will automatically liberate a person from the dualities of life. In bhakti, Krishna is in the center and Krishna is always transcendental. So what does this mean? That Krishna is above all the relativities of this material energy. In fact, he is completely free from the influence of the material energy. So bhakti means to connect with Krishna on the spiritual platform. And connecting with Krishna means free from the relativities that come and go in this material world. And then Krishna says, and Prabhupada goes on to say, how is that achieved? By full engagement in devotional service. He quotes this verse from the 14th chapter. One who does not fall down in any circumstance transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the spiritual platform. If one is factually engaged in the service of the Lord, he automatically can control his senses, his tongue, and many other things. That means the things around us. Once engaged in the bhakti process with all sincerity, one will have no chance of falling down. And Prabhupada makes this point, sincerity, because this sincerity is the key to success in devotional service. What does sincerity actually understand in application? It means whatever is necessary for me to become Krishna conscious, then I am willing to accept that eagerly. In other words, if I find something that's difficult, but I'm sincere, it doesn't become a difficulty. It becomes part of the process of elevating my consciousness. If something becomes easy, then naturally I accept it with no second thought. But in either case, sincerity is the driving force. In other words, we also might say another meaning of sincerity is firm conviction. I will become Krishna conscious. And that sincerity to carry out that firm conviction is the process of bhakti. Things in bhakti we may not like and we might find difficult, or we might find reasons not to follow them. And then there are things that we kind of enjoy. In either case, these amalgamate themselves on a higher platform and become one in the execution of devotional service. Therefore, a sincere devotee is not swayed by difficulties, nor what we say overly elated by the happiness that comes through devotional service. It becomes natural. Now, to reach that platform, Prabhupada, emphasizes this through this verse where he says, one who engages in full devotional. So in other words, one has to be fixed in devotional service always. Even if one is in household life, has many responsibilities, one has to learn the art. And this is important to understand. One has to learn the art to connect everything with Krishna in the process of bhakti. And that can be done by understanding the science through the instructions of one's spiritual master. In other words, one has to inquire from one's spiritual master how I can execute devotional service in the most, what we say, successful and effective way. If we don't do that and we speculate, then obviously we'll make mistakes, and obviously we won't be able to stay steady in devotional service. Prabhupada ends, even if one falls down, there's no loss. Of course, this is concessionary, and we're not so much interested in not succeeding. But Prabhupada said, even if it happens, one's devotional service may be stopped or stunned and choked for some time, but in the next life, there will be another chance and one begins where they left off. Of course, these concessionary points are there, but they are not seriously taken by devotees. Devotees, in one sense, don't consider concessions as being foremost. They consider it the grace of the Lord only. In the case of one's, what we say, falling short of the actual goal. But the idea is to finish up in this life. Don't consider, well, maybe next life will be better. Prabhupada would always say, whatever is blocking you in this life from making advancement in devotional service will again be there in your next life. And so you have to face it at one point or another. Purification is a continuation of freeing ourselves from material desires and material attachments. And if we continue, and then this situation we have now is always the best situation. We should not think something better will come up in the future. And as they say, trust no future, no matter how pleasant people describe it, because no one knows the future, especially when it comes to one's next life. One doesn't know where one will be, and one can also be in a less opportune situation and then again struggle just to maintain. So, and of course, um, a devotee wants to use all of their time in this life to actually reach the stage of perfection. So back to the essential principle of the verse is becoming free from the dualities of the material energy. And this is the nature of the material energy. Wherever there's happiness, there's distress. Wherever there's heat, there's cold. In other words, you can't get away from dualities. There's no such thing as absolute happiness. And there's no such thing as absolute misery, although sometimes misery seems like that. It can seem so long-term that it appears to be absolute. So in any case, this is the nature of this world, and one should learn to tolerate it. As Lord Chaitanya gives the formula as one of the most important verses for the devotees to both learn, understand, and apply. He says, Trinadapi, Sunichena Tayor Ivasa Hishniya, Amanina Mamanadena Kirtaniya Sadarahi. Tolerance is a part of that verse, and one has to be, he explains, to be more tolerant of the tree. Using the tree as the example of tolerance, one cannot find a more better example of tolerance. The tree gives shade in a hot summer and bears the heat of the sun on its own branches and leaves, but still it gives shade. In the wintertime, people use the wood of the tree to heat their homes and to cook their food in some cases. Birds, animals sometimes use the tree to have, places to live. And we find that the tree is always, what we say, exploited by others for others, but the tree never complains. The tree is a living entity. The tree is also conscious, but its consciousness is subdued by the tree body or lessened by the tree body. Still, it undergoes suffering, and through this, there is some suffering at the tree. I remember when I used to travel in the wintertime through the Midwest, we would go far west into the areas of Colorado and that area there. And we would, there would be these trees. They were really thin trees, small trees, but they would be in clumps. They would be pretty much growing close together. But in the wintertime, something unusual would happen with the trees. The trees amongst themselves would take their branches and wrap their branches around each other. This was a feature in the wintertime. You wouldn't see that in the warmer weather. And so we might say that the trees are getting shelter from each other in the severe cold. But they also experience, to a slight degree, some difficulties in meteorology, not like we experience it. So this example is what we say the best of all examples, and that's why Lord Chaitanya chose it. And he says this tolerance. Tolerance is one of the most highest and glorious qualities a devotee can, what we say, develop. And it's something that is always developing. It's not that you become tolerant and then you're tolerant. You have to practice tolerance constantly. And this is the nature of this material world. So this verse is very instructive that in order to gain the strength to perform tolerance, one has to perform austerities. And as Prabhupada mentions, and it's something that is fundamental to our practice of Krishna consciousness, it is the four regulative principles: no illicit sex, no intoxication, no nudity, no gambling. Prabhupada said if one can chant 16 rounds and follow these principles throughout their whole life, they can qualify themselves to return to the spiritual world. So in this age, these four things go on in daily life as ordinary. People actually become famous by what we say, emphasizing these four sinful activities: illicit sex, intoxication, meat eating, and gambling. So sin, especially in Kali Yuga, is a feature of normality for the conditioned soul's existence. The devotees are surrounded by this everywhere, and maybe because of our previous conditioning in material life, we were also engaged in these activities to some degree. But now, since we've come to Krishna consciousness, we realize that these four sinful activities, they are the foundation for freeing oneself for all sinful activities. As Srila Prabhupada mentions this, that one who can follow these four regulative principles can free themselves from all the reactions of all sinful activities. These are the pillars, and this is the word he uses. Pillar means foundation, in this sense of the word, of something that is so stable. So these four sinful activities are the stability of all sinful activities. So one can remove these four and one can cut down the house of material existence. And so this is the austerity recommended in this age. And of course there's added austerities, like to chant 16 rounds every day, early as one can, and engage one's time and energy in serving the Lord and serving the Lord by serving the Lord's devotees. Serving the devotees means to serve the Lord in the best possible way. Especially the pure devotee of the Lord, that service is the highest form of service that one can render, and is very pleasing to the Lord by purely serving the pure spiritual master, by pleasing him in our execution of devotional service. Okay, so these are some of the principles we can think about in relationship to this verse. So two things that we have to develop: tolerance, and tolerance is developed by austerity. Austerity is following the principles as given to us by Srila Prabhupada in our practice of devotional service, especially these four regulative principles. If we feel it's necessary to add other austerities, we may also do that. Of course, the scriptures also recommend fasting on the Ekadasi day, giving in charity, especially during auspicious times of the year. And so these are added austerities that one can undergo, learning how to work with others in execution of one's devotional service. This is also an austerity. So just the process of bhakti itself is fraught with, or what we say, laced with various types of austerities. It's meant to develop the proper consciousness where we can serve the Lord with devotion. Austerity leads to devotion. As it says, knowledge leads to austerity, austerity leads to devotion, or devotion leads to Krishna. Okay, so we'll take some time and see if there are any questions or comments.
Thank you, Maharaj. Devotees, please, you have any question, concern, or any clarification seek from Maharaj, please go ahead. Maharaj, I have one question which is related to this verse, but related to also your early days in Krishna consciousness. What was the driving force to go through the austerities all of you went through during the initial days when there was no facility, there was no temple, everything was just beginning, and then the kind of austerities you went through, we cannot even imagine. Just like Srila Prabhupada is mentioning in this shloka that it is difficult to have austerity life in today's age. What was the driving force?
Srila Prabhupada.
Hari Bol.
He was the driving force. Not only was he able to awaken within us the desire to perform austerities, but he was doing it himself. It's not that he was just speaking, he was performing austerities that we couldn't even follow. Devotees had so many experiences being with Srila Prabhupada. How many hours a night he slept we couldn't even come close to that. In the evening, he would sleep 1.5, 2 hours in the evening, and a little bit of rest during the day, and continue all day in devotional service. And that was one of his austerities, among so many others. The other austerities was dealing with trying to spread Krishna consciousness despite so many obstacles and so many reverses that came. Yeah, Srila Prabhupada was the driving force, but he inspired his leaders also in the same way, and those leaders were inspiring the general mass of devotees. In my personal case, I had a leader who was also very austere and very devoted, and also was very expert at presenting Srila Prabhupada's teachings. So having that on a local level, and also hearing of Srila Prabhupada and reading his books, we developed a real, what we say, attraction for practicing Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness seemed like the most wonderful thing we ever come across. And it was at that time, and still is. Of course, it's even gotten better. But at the time, we couldn't compare it with anything else. And the experiences we were having, especially in Kirtan, and the prasadam was outstandingly wonderful. Everything was so nice. It was like entering a whole new realm of happiness. Therefore, these difficulties that apparently we were faced with were great opportunities to show our appreciation for Prabhupada. In fact, the devotees in those days, they were eager to get an instruction from Prabhupada, just so they could do something for Prabhupada and please Prabhupada. Prabhupada was the force because the devotees wanted to please Prabhupada. Prabhupada attracted our hearts and minds so strongly, not only by his instructions, but by his personal nature. that devotees just whatever Prabhupada wanted, we couldn't wait to carry it out. So that force was there. And Prabhupada, of course, is still with us in the form of his body. And that body carries us continually, that we want to still please Srila Prabhupada by accepting his guidance and instructions in devotional service.
Thank you, Maharaj.
You
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and all glories to yourself.
glories to Prabhupada. Very well.
Very good. Maharaj, I have one question. When reading Nectar of Devotion, one of the characteristics of pure devotional service is that it brings auspiciousness immediately. Pure devotional service brings auspiciousness also. And while reading that section, Prabhupada mentions that those who are not in Krishna consciousness, they do not have any good qualities. So how do we understand that? Because we see our parents, our relatives, a lot of friends who do have saintly qualities. They may not be following Krishna consciousness, or they are not in they are not practicing bhakti yoga, but we do see good qualities in them. So how do we understand that statement that those who are not following Krishna consciousness, they do not have any good qualities?
Yeah, that's Prabhupada's connected to a verse in the 5th canto, 18th chapter, verse number 12. Yasyasti bhakti bhagavate kinchana sarvaguna to me sada arava bhaktas tato mahagunam namo ratem satu dayato vahi. 5:18:12. That verse explains that in detail. Do you have it with you? 5th canto, 18th chapter, verse number 12. And Prabhupada is using that verse to make a point. And in that verse, it explains that those who are working under the influence of the material energy, because they are not on the transcendental platform or not on the spiritual platform, the material energy is always shifting. And therefore, their good qualities come and go according to the shifting of the material energy. Is this the verse? I think, yeah, that's it. All the demigods in their world and exalt such as religion, enunciation become manifest in the body of one who has developed unalloyed devotional service for the Supreme Personality of philosophy. On the other hand, persons devoid of devotional service and engaged in material activities have no good qualities. Then it goes on, even if he is adept at the practice of mystic yoga or an honest endeavor for maintaining his family and relatives, he must be driven by his own mental speculation and must engage in the service of the Lord's external energy. How can there be any good qualities in such a person? So here, one who's engaged in the service of the external energy, the good qualities are based on what we say a sense of selfishness. People have good qualities in order to gain something material. The devotees' good qualities automatically manifest in their relationship to Krishna through the engagement of devotional service. So using this particular understanding is that we see there is a person called the moral materialist. He's very moral, gives in charity, generally might have a nature of kindness towards others, but it's all about himself. As long as one keeps oneself in the center of all one's activities, then that destroys all of one's good qualities. So, of course, we see even in the material world, people have a sense of regard to others, and people are kind to others and want to do good to others. We can say that that is a good quality, but it's covered still by the material energy. So Srimad Bhagavatam gets right to the point. So Prabhupada's point is to somehow give us a clear division between the good qualities that are adopted in material life through one's own endeavor to further one's, what we say, success in material life and those good qualities that come by execution of one's devotional service. There's a distinction like that. So we don't disregard people who are pious. Like you say, family members may be kind, they also may be pious, they may be generous also. But still, unless people come to the platform of selfless service, then those good qualities are mixed with their own motivations. So we have to understand this verse and this understanding requires some explanation. But we don't speak like that to people who are not devotees. We appreciate them for who they are. And we can appreciate, but we understand if they just use their good qualities in service of Krishna, then their good qualities become established as a spiritual principle, and then their good qualities become even greater.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Is that helpful?
Yes, Maharaj. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Ram Tirtha. Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, I have another question. If there are no other questions, I would like to ask one more about chanting of the holy names. We read in scriptures that if one chants the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra even once, so all the sinful reactions that are there from millions of lifetimes, they are eradicated.
Once purely. Once purely.
But we do see in some places where even if one chants the holy name even jokingly or even offensively, still it removes the sinful reactions, all the sinful karma that they have from millions of lifetimes. So
that is called namabas.
Yeah.
But that is not pseudonym. That's namabas. That the reactions of sinful activities go, but one still is not on the pure platform yet. So that's like a glimmer of the spiritual energy, but it's not the full spiritual platform. But one who chants purely, just like we have the example in the Shastras of Ajamil, he chanted to call his son Narayan. But when he called without any, what we say, what's the word? He wasn't trying to gain anything by calling. He was calling the name of Narayan, who was his son. But when he called, by hearing his own voice call the pure name of the Lord, he remembered the Lord. And because of that, everything, all those sinful actions went, but he didn't go back to the spiritual world. He had to go to Hardware and spend 12 more years at Hardware, purifying himself further, and then at the end of those 12 years, he went back to Godhead. But getting rid of all sinful activities is not pure devotional service. It's just liberation, that's all.
So even at Namabasa stage, when devotees start chanting the holy names, but they are still committing offenses, or still, there are some sinful reactions for them because they are not chanting the Shuddhanam at that point.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. You have to stop committing any activities which are contrary to devotional service.
Okay.
Not only sinful activities, but things that are unnecessary for one's devotional service.
Okay.
Like I might like to go to the movies or something, It's not necessary. Unless it's Krishna conscious movies, then it's different.
Yeah, because sometimes devotees do say that even if you chant, however you chant, doesn't matter. You just chant, even if you chant once, all the sinful reactions from the previous lives, millions of lives, are eradicated. They may say that it is Shuddhana. They say doesn't matter. You just chant holy name, then all the sinful reactions are gone. So
Krishna sees your intention.
Okay.
Yeah. If when it's explained that one should chant in a humble state of mind, making oneself tolerant and giving respects to others and not looking for respect for yourself. That is the mood of proper chanting. One may not be on that platform, but one should practice those qualities in relationship to the chanting. Not that one can just, what we say, mechanically or surreptitiously just chant. Krishna is a person. He knows your intention.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay, thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj, you said that one should not do unnecessary things, not just the sinful, but the unnecessary things. So being in a grihastha life, being a mother, I often find myself doing many unnecessary things which got nothing to do with bhakti, but for the family life, I do it. So what should be our consciousness at the time when we do it? So,
Well, if you have to maintain the family, then that is not unnecessary. But you have to see what's necessary to maintain the family and do that. Therefore, that's called Gona Bhakti. Gona Bhakti means those activities which are parallel to pure Bhakti, but are required in order to maintain one's body and soul in this material world. This is described in Nectar. I'm sorry, Nectar Devotion and in Srimad Bhagavatam. That for those living in Grihastha Ashram, there are material activities that need to be performed in order to maintain the. So then you have to see what is necessary and what is extra. And by cutting out the extra, you find that you become more efficient at doing what is necessary, and at the same time, you have more time for devotional service. So that's up to you to discriminate between what's necessary and what's unnecessary.
okay, Maharaj, thank you so much for your wonderful answer. Dandavad Pranam, Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna, Anuradha.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj, please accept our humble obeisances. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for your wonderful class. I have a question on austerity. We know that we have to continue to increase our devotional activities as well as austerity. But I've also heard that too much austerity makes one's heart hard. And so where to draw a line? For example, I want to practice Nirjal on Ekadashi. I'm inspired by my friends who are doing that. Sometimes it's possible and some days it's not. So how to know that what is the level that it's okay for us and not making the hard heart?
I'm going to take a 10-second break and I'll be right back because there's something that needs to be done in my place, and I'll be back in 10 seconds. Okay?
Yes, Maharaj.
Thank you. Hare Krishna, thank you for your patience. Do you want me to speak in relationship to Nir Jalakadasi or just in general with that question? Your audio is off now.
Yeah, sorry, Maharaj. Both in principle and also if you can guide me with this particular thing of example to me.
Well, there are recommended austerities that we have to perform, and we follow that. As it explains in the in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes in the 17th chapter, austerities of the mind, austerities of body, austerities of speech. So those 3 verses list, I think there's 5 austerities of the body, there's 3 austerities of speech, and austerities of the mind also are there. So if we can practice those basic austerities, they're actually in relationship to developing certain good qualities that are needed for us to approach the Lord in devotion. I don't have Bhagavad Gita with me. I can remember some of these things, but if you read the 17th chapter, I think it starts with verse number 13 through 13, 14, 15. Yeah.
Yes, Mother.
Yeah. If you follow the basic austerities as recommended by the spiritual master and the Shastras, then that's enough. In relationship to what you had said about Nirjala Ekadasi, Nirjala Ekadasi is only required if one has somehow or other failed to honor one of the Ekadasis that year. You don't have to follow Nirjala if you haven't broke in Ekadasi. So if you've been following all Ekadasis, then the Nirjala Ekadasi can be performed like any other Ekadasi. The Prabhupada didn't follow Nirjala Ekadasi, but he followed the regular. So if we say, well, because it's Nirjala, we should do Nirjala, Prabhupada has given us the formula. We follow what Prabhupada says, and that is enough. So I don't follow Nirjala unless I break in the Ekadasi, then I do it. But it's not like it's required specifically. But for austerities, if you follow those 4 regulative principles, as we mentioned, those things are fundamental. By doing that, then you're practically following all the austerities that are needed. And the biggest austerity is to chant 16 rounds every day. Every day, not just some days. That's an austerity. Day after day, year after year, life, decade after decade, that's an austerity.
Yeah. And also chant nicely, giving the time and attention. That's, definitely austerity.
Chanting is something that's progressive. Once we develop a taste for chanting, then it's no longer an austerity. We want to get to that stage of developing a taste. It comes by chanting and by serving.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Thank you so much for your wonderful answers, guidance, and association.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for such a beautiful class. I have a question.
Can you speak a little bit louder?
Okay, my voice is not clear, Maharaj. Hare Krishna Maharaj, can you hear now my voice, Maharaj?
Oh, now you're coming in really good.
Okay, sorry Maharaj, my device has some problem maybe. So my question is, we say that when the soul leaves body, it's like a changing dress, right? But there is a pain also when the soul is leaving the body. So how do we understand that? Even though we say it's like a changing of a dress, but there is a pain. There is a pain for the body, and also there is a pain for the family members too. So how do we understand this concept?
Well, Yeah, but most of the pain is attachment. In fact, 99% of the pain is the attachment to the body. As we give up the attachment to the body, we can give up the pain of going from one body to another. Of course, the idea is not to get any more bodies after this one. That's the whole idea. And therefore, as we free ourselves from material desires and material attachments, the pain of leaving the body also goes. It's explained for a pure devotee that when they leave their body, it's like a flash of lightning that a lightning flash is so fast. So you're here, and then a flash later, you're with Krishna in the spiritual world. It's that fast. For the non-devotees, their change of body is much longer, and they have to go through much suffering to go from one situation to the other. Attachment leads to pain. Give up the attachment to the body by becoming attached to Krishna in devotional service, and then you reduce pain.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Who's speaking?
This is Vinita Gandharvika.
Who?
Vinita Gandharvika Devidasi.
Okay, I'm not sure I heard that, but anyway, Hare Krishna.
Sorry, Maharaj, I don't know, somehow my device has a problem. That's why I think so. You could not hear me. Please forgive me, Maharaj.
Okay.
She said Vinita Gandharvika.
Vinita Gandharvika, okay. Good. Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Thank you for your lecture. I want to ask about austerity, for many devotees who don't live in temple and go to job, is one of the austerity to take only prasadam. What's about this?
Yeah, that's one of the austerities, only to eat Krishna prasadam, not to eat food prepared by non-devotees, or not to eat food that is not offered to the Lord. But once you get accustomed to eating Krishna prasadam, then you don't want to you don't want to eat any other food, because there is that element of spiritual satisfaction that comes with taking Krishna prasadam that's not there in eating ordinary food. And Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, what is that? Sisno sa sukadukada agapayino nityas tam sitikna. What is that verse? It's 2:13 in no 3:13 in the Bhagavad Gita. 3:13. Anybody have a Bhagavad Gita? 3:13.
Yeah, yes, Mara.
Tadna sansistito shanto munchite sarvakil bisad bunchite te agam papam ye prachat manakar. Devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is first offered in sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment verily eat only sin. So you're eating karma when you eat food that has been prepared on the outside or food that is not offered to Krishna. So karma and sinful reactions come in the way of foodstuffs directly. That's why if devotees eat food cooked by non-devotees, you're gonna find it's very difficult to chant the holy names of the Lord. You're gonna find it's very hard to control your mind. And you may also experience strange thoughts and dreams when you eat food cooked by the non-devotees. That's something you should very, very, what's the word? Seriously avoid. Any food cooked by non-devotees, especially grains. I mean, if we're out traveling, we can stop and get a salad in in these different supermarkets. They provide salads. You can take the salad and offer it to Krishna with prayers and then take prasad. Fruit also can be done like that. That's nice. But prepared food by non-devotees should be strictly avoided. If you really value your spiritual life, this is one of the more important things. I always like to take food at Shamagori's house. It's very nice prasadam because it's Jagannath prasadam and it's cooked with such devotion. So one of my favorite activities in coming to Charlotte is having prasadam with Abhiram Saka and his family. I'm seriously saying that. That's not some nice words.
It's our favorite activity too, Maharaj. We really like after that how you say so many stories and humor and play with the kids. We're really missing that, Maharaj.
Me too. I'm missing that too. This is the downside of this present situation. Devotees can't get together like we used to.
Yeah.
But as they say, what is it? At the end of every cloud has a silver lining. So for the devotees, things will only get better in the future. We just have to go through this period, and this is a great opportunity to increase our devotion.
Yes, Maharaj. And also we are knowing the value of devotees.
Mhm.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Please accept my humble
Oh,
obeisance.
Shamagori, Haribo, Haribo.
Thank you,
What's,
Maharaj.
I haven't had lunch today, so what's for lunch?
All your favorite, everything.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, nice to see you, Maharaj. We haven't seen you from long time, and the year has passed, and you didn't come, and it's very sad situation right now.
Yeah, it's sad because the devotees can't get together like we used to.
Yeah.
I'm on quarantine presently. I traveled, I'm in Slovenia, and I traveled out of Slovenia into Croatia, and I tried to get back in, and they put me on 14-day quarantine. So I'm on my 6th day right now, 5th day or 6th day, I can't remember. But I can't even go out. I'm not even allowed out, and nobody can come and see me. So nice to see all the devotees online, though. It gives me great happiness.
Yes, Maharaj. So, Maharaj, I have a question. Like, sometimes we want to do austerities like fasting for Chaturmasya and like Mataji was saying, Nirjal Ekadashi, but body doesn't cooperate. And so, what to do in this situation?
Well, don't force it. It's not necessary. The main austerity is to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and follow those 4 regulative principles. If we can do that, then whatever other austerities we can perform, that's good. But if you find that the body is either getting sick or it's difficult, then it's better not to force it. If you can, that's good. If you can't, there's no loss.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to. Prabhupada emphasized the importance of keeping good health. And of course, austerity also brings good health. But too much or unnecessary austerity can also make devotional service difficult.
Thank you, Maharaj, and I'm missing cooking for you. It's...
You can cook for me and send it by email or something. Send it as an attachment to an email. Thank you. I'd also miss your sweet association. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Abhi, how are we doing on time?
We are good. If the devotees has question, we can ask. Otherwise, we can end. And we will have more opportunities of having your association regularly. So that is very good. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for accepting our request.
So we do have another program on the 23rd, right, which is in 2 days.
Yeah, Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that's a specific holy day. Okay.
Yeah.
And then,
okay.
However weeks you can provide your guidance and association on every Friday. That's what we are requesting you to.
Well, with my present situation, I have a lot of time.
So we would like to take advantage of that, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
So Friday, you can put me down for Fridays as what we say, at least for now, we can keep doing every Fridays and see how things develop.
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay.
Anybody else has any question?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances, always to Srila Prabhupada and Your Holiness. Thank you so much for the wonderful class and nice question answer sessions, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for coming on Bhakti Sangha conference. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Lavanya. Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj. Koti Koti Dandavat Pranam. Please give your association regularly. Koti Koti Dandavat Pranam. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev Ki Jai. Thank you, Maharaj.
We shall eat. Hare Krishna. My obeisances to all the devotees. Please stay healthy. Please stay safe. And we'll be with you again soon. Thank you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Abhi. Thank you, Shamagori. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. All gurus to your services, all gurus to your association, Maharaj. Thank you.
Navevyo namo namo.
Anantakoti Vaishnava
Hari Hari.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you,
Guru
Maharaj.
Maharaj.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj. Dandavat Pranam. Hare Krishna.
Haribo, 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 Haribo.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj.
Very nice class. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.